When I first read that note, I thought it was a joke. The handwriting was neat, too neat, as if she had practiced it. It started with 3 words that cracked something deep inside me. Please don't look for me. I remember standing there in her room, the morning sun sliding through the half-open curtains, painting stripes across her empty bed. Her phone lay on the dresser, her favorite hoodie tossed over the chair, but her suitcase, the one with the stickers from our mother-daughter trip to Kuala Lumpur, was gone. For a long moment, I just stared at the letter. The walls seemed to hum. I could hear the faint tick of the old clock in the hallway, and beneath that, my own heartbeat, uneven, heavy, slow. I sat on her bed and read the rest, but honestly, I can't even remember every word. My eyes blurred halfway through. Something about needing space, about finally understanding Dad, and then that name, the one I hadn't heard aloud in almost 15 years. I'm with Uncle Samir. That name brought the whole house down around me. Before it all fell apart. Before that week, everything in our home felt ordinary. Not perfect, but safe in its own quiet rhythm. My daughter Amira was 22, freshly graduated, ambitious, sometimes too stubborn for her own good. We were close, or so I thought. We shared late-night cups of tea, gossip about her friends, and arguments that always ended with her saying, "You worry too much, Mama." I'd raised her alone since she was 7. Her father, Faisal, had left after the scandal, the one that burned through our family like wildfire and left me with ashes for trust. Back then, Faisal's closest friend, Samir, had come around often. Too often, I realized later. He helped Faisal start a business, was family, or so everyone said. Until the day Faisal vanished, leaving me with debts and whispers, and Samir nowhere to be found. When I discovered what they had done, falsified documents in my name, borrowed money from my parents, sold our land, I broke. I spent years rebuilding, piece by piece. I told Amira only what was necessary, that her father made mistakes, that some people can smile while sinking your world. Samir was the devil in all my stories. And now, she was with him. The first signs. It began weeks before the letter. I should have noticed, but life has a way of dulling your instincts when you think you're finally safe. Amira had started working part-time at a small marketing firm. She came home tired, distracted, often missing dinner. When I asked how work was, she'd shrug. "Fine, Mama. Just busy." She stopped leaving her phone on the dining table. Her laughter grew softer, her eyes more distant. One evening, while folding laundry, I caught her staring at an old photo on her laptop, one of her as a child, sitting on her father's lap. Samir stood behind them, smiling. "Where did you get that picture?" I asked gently. She closed the laptop too fast. "Just found it online," she said. "You keep everything locked away, Mama." Maybe it's time to remember some things. Something in her tone, not angry but wounded, made me pause. I wanted to tell her remembering wasn't the problem. It was surviving the memory that was. The distance. Over the next few days, she started coming home later and later. I tried to keep my calm. I cooked her favorite lentil soup, waited up with the TV humming in the background, pretending to watch. When she finally came in at midnight one Friday, I caught the faintest scent of men's cologne. Sharp, expensive, the kind her father used to wear. "Where were you?" I asked. She smiled too quickly. "Work dinner." "With who?" "Just colleagues." "Male colleagues?" She rolled her eyes. "Mama, please." "Don't start." Her words weren't cruel, but the wall between us was growing. Silent, invisible, unscalable. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked past her room around 2 a.m., saw the light under the door, and heard her voice. Soft. Intimate. She was on a call. "Yes, I told her. She doesn't understand." "I know, you always said she'd react like this." "No, I haven't told her about us yet." The words sliced through the quiet like glass. I froze, my hand against the wall. Us. I didn't need to hear more. Every part of me, the mother, the betrayed woman, the survivor, screamed that something was terribly wrong. The breaking point. 2 days later, she came home early. I was in the kitchen, cutting onions, pretending not to watch the driveway through the window. When she entered, she looked different, calmer, maybe even relieved. "Amira," I said softly, "can we talk?" She hesitated. "About what?" "You've been distant lately. You're hiding something. If there's someone in your life, I just want to know who he is." She set her bag down slowly. "Mama, not everything is about you needing to protect me." I swallowed hard. "It's not protection. It's love." She exhaled, shaking her head. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." And then she looked at me, really looked, and said the words that made my knees weaken. "I've been talking to someone from your past. He told me everything about Dad. About you." I felt the knife slip from my hand. "Who?" She didn't answer, but she didn't need to. The silence said it all. "Samir." My vision blurred. I gripped the counter. "He's lying to you," I whispered. "He's always lied. He destroyed this family." Her voice trembled, but her conviction didn't. "Maybe that's not the whole story, Mama. Maybe you've only told me yours." That night, she locked herself in her room. By morning, she was gone. I reread the letter a dozen times that day. Every word felt like an open wound. She'd left to understand the truth, to hear the other side. She believed Samir was the only one who could tell her what really happened between him and her father. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just losing my daughter. I was losing her to the same man who'd once stolen everything from me. But not again. Not this time. The next morning, I drove for hours without direction. The roads blurred, but my thoughts were sharper than ever, looping between fear and fury. I stopped by her office first. Her coworkers said she'd taken a personal leave. One girl mentioned she'd seen Amira the previous week, with an older man. "Gray hair, nice car," she said. "Looked like her father, maybe?" My stomach clenched. I tried calling Amira again. Her phone went straight to voicemail. I messaged her friends, her cousins, anyone she might trust. Nothing. That evening, I went through her room again, desperate for something I had missed. I searched under her bed, inside her closet, even behind her bookshelf. Finally, I found it. A small brown envelope tucked between two novels. Inside were old photographs. Amira as a little girl, me, Faisal, and Samir. I hadn't seen those in years. I'd destroyed most of them after Faisal's disappearance. But these weren't printed from our albums. They were new prints. Someone had sent them to her recently. On the back of one, a handwriting I knew too well. "Your father was my brother in everything but blood. You deserve to know why he left no signature." But it didn't need one. The call. That night my phone rang, a blocked number. When I answered, silence hung for a few seconds. Then a familiar voice, smooth as oil and twice as slippery, spoke. "Hello, Farah. You still sound the same." My chest tightened. "Where is she, Samir?" He chuckled softly. "Safe. For now. Don't you dare—" "Relax," he interrupted, his tone infuriatingly calm. "I'm not your enemy. I'm helping her understand the truth you hid from her." My grip on the phone trembled. "The truth? You stole from us, Samir, you and Faisal." "I tried to save your family," he said, voice rising now. "Your husband made bad decisions. I covered for him. You never saw that. And now your daughter is old enough to hear what really happened." "You don't get to use her to rewrite history," I spat. "If you touch her, I'll—" He laughed. "You'll what, Farah? Scream again? Call the police? You forget. I've done nothing wrong." The line went dead. I stood there, the silence deafening. For a long moment I couldn't breathe. He had her, not by force, but by faith. He'd turned my daughter's trust into his weapon. The memory. That night I barely slept. I sat by the window, replaying every moment from 15 years ago. Back then, Faisal's company was struggling. We were drowning in loans. Samir offered to help, a joint business deal that could save us. I signed the papers, trusting them both. A month later, Faisal vanished. The debt collectors came after me. Samir denied everything, disappeared soon after. When I tried to recover what was left, I learned the truth. Samir had shifted all liabilities into my name. The police couldn't trace him. I spent years paying off the loans, selling my jewelry, our land, everything. And now he'd returned, through my daughter. The discovery 3 days later, I got a message from an unknown number. "She's fine. Don't worry. She just needs time." I knew it was her. Relief and dread tangled inside me. I replied immediately, "Where are you, Amira? Please come home. We can talk." No response. The next morning, I drove to the one place that haunted me most, Faisal's old apartment on the outskirts of town. It had been abandoned for years, but I had a feeling. When I arrived, the building was half renovated, a construction site now. Still, I asked around. One of the workers mentioned that an older man had been renting a nearby unit for a young woman. I waited outside the complex for hours. And then, there she was, my Amira. She stepped out of the gate in a simple white dress, her hair pulled back, her phone in her hand. Beside her, walking with the same confident swagger I remembered too well, was Samir. He looked older, grayer, but that smirk, that self-assured calm, hadn't aged a day. I got out of the car and called her name. "Amira!" She froze. Samir turned, his smile polite but cold. "Farah," he greeted me, like we were old friends meeting at a cafe. Amira's face paled. "Mama, please!" I ignored her. "You! Stay away from her!" Samir raised his hand slightly. "You've misunderstood." She came to me. She wanted answers. "Answers?" I snapped. "You lied to her!" Amira stepped between us. "Stop it! Both of you!" I looked at her. Her eyes were wide, tearful, confused. "Amira, he destroyed us. Your father didn't leave because he wanted to. Samir set him up." Samir sighed, shaking his head. "Still blaming others, I see. She's never changed, Amira. Always the victim. I could barely contain the shaking in my hands. You forged documents in my name." He met my gaze evenly. "Prove it." For a second, the world went still. I realized he wasn't just gaslighting me. He was teaching my daughter to doubt her own mother. I turned to her. "Please, Amira, just come home. We can sort this out. Don't let him use you." She hesitated, her lip trembling. But then Samir gently touched her shoulder, and I saw her body relax under his touch, the same touch that had once manipulated our entire lives. That was the moment I felt my heart truly break. She looked away. "I'll call you, Mama." They walked past me toward his car. I stood there until the engine faded into the distance, the wind carrying the faintest echo of her voice. "I'll call you." But she didn't. Not for 2 weeks. The collapse. Those 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I kept functioning, going to work, cooking meals I didn't eat, keeping my phone beside me even in the shower. Every ping made my heart leap. Every silence made it sink deeper. I considered calling the police, but what could I say? My adult daughter left with a man from our past? She wasn't kidnapped. She was choosing this. It was the helplessness that killed me most. Then one night, around midnight, I got another call. Not from her, but from an unknown number again. This time it was a woman. Her voice was calm but urgent. "Mrs. Farah? You don't know me, but I work with Mr. Samir. I think you should know. Your daughter is in trouble." My knees went weak. "What happened? Where is she?" "She found out something," the woman said quietly. "Something he didn't want her to know. She tried to confront him. I heard shouting. Then she ran out. He's been furious ever since I felt my whole body turn cold." "Where is she now?" "I don't know. But if you want to find her, check the old warehouse by the harbor. That's where she met him last." The line went dead before I could ask her name. I didn't think. I just grabbed my keys and drove. The night was thick with fog. The roads were empty. My heart beat so loud it drowned out the radio. All I could think of was her voice, her laughter as a child, her first steps, her tears when she scraped her knee. My daughter, my only child, and the man who had ruined my family, had now taken her trust too. When I reached the warehouse, the gates were half open. Inside, light spilled from one of the side rooms. I called her name softly, Amira, and then I heard it, muffled sobbing. I followed the sound, and there she was, sitting on the cold floor, her face streaked with tears. When she saw me, she didn't speak. She just ran into my arms. "Ma," she whispered, "you were right." The confrontation. Her body trembled in my arms. I could feel her heartbeat racing through the thin fabric of her blouse. The air in the warehouse smelled like rust and damp cement, and for a moment I just held her. No words, no questions. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were swollen, her lipstick smeared, and her voice came out in a whisper. "Ma, he's not who I thought he was." I brushed her hair from her face gently. "What happened, Amira?" She swallowed hard. "He told me everything about Dad, how you supposedly ruined the business, how you drove him away. He said you framed him, that you were greedy. I believed him. For a while." Tears welled up again. "He showed me papers, Mama. Bank transfers, letters with your name. I thought maybe you had lied all these years. But when I started asking questions, he changed. He got angry, said I was just like you." Ungrateful, I clenched my jaw. "What did he do?" "He tried to convince me to move abroad with him. Said we could start over. When I refused, he snapped. He said I owed him for all the money he spent helping me understand the truth." She paused, trembling. "That's when I ran. I didn't know where else to go. I closed my eyes, anger and sorrow warring inside me. He hadn't changed. Samir was still the same parasite, feeding on guilt, twisting love into leverage. "We're leaving," I said firmly. "Now." Amira nodded weakly. As we walked toward the car, headlights flared across the lot. My heart skipped. A dark sedan pulled up, and from it stepped Samir, calm, composed, and smiling that same snake's smile. "Well," he said, voice echoing against the metal walls, "looks like the reunion's complete." I positioned myself in front of Amira. "You stay away from her." He took a slow step forward. "Relax, Farah. She's an adult. She can make her own choices." Amira's voice cracked. "You lied to me." His smile faltered just slightly. "Everything I told you was true." She shook her head. "You forged the documents, didn't you? You made Dad sign them. You made Mama take the blame." He laughed softly. "Your father was a coward. I cleaned up his mess. Without me, you'd both have been on the street." I stepped forward, voice steady but cold. "And you profited from it. You took his name, his assets, and left us with the ruins. You think I didn't know?" For a moment his mask slipped. I saw the flicker of rage beneath the charm. "Careful," he said quietly. "You don't want to push me." But this time, I didn't flinch. "I've already been pushed. 15 years ago. You don't scare me anymore." I pulled out my phone, recording. "You've just confessed enough for the police to reopen the case." His eyes darted to the red light blinking on my screen. He stepped back, jaw tightening. "You think anyone cares about your little sob story? You signed those papers, Farah. You always sign before you read." "Maybe," I said softly, "but this time I read everything." "And so will they." I hit send, forwarding the recording and copies of his old emails to a lawyer friend who had helped me years ago. Samir's calm shattered. "You'll regret this," he hissed, before turning and storming back to his car. The sound of tires screeching faded into the distance. I turned to my daughter, who was still trembling. "It's over," I whispered, pulling her close. "He can't hurt us anymore." But I didn't know then. It wasn't quite over yet. The public consequence. The next morning, I went straight to the police with Amira. I brought the letter she'd left, the photos, the recorded confession. The officer who took our statement remembered Samir's name. He nodded grimly. We've had reports. You're not the only one he's done this to. Over the next few weeks, everything unfolded like a slow-motion reckoning. Samir was arrested for fraud and coercion after evidence surfaced of his involvement in multiple scams, including ours. When it hit the local news, people called me nonstop. Some offered sympathy, others gossip, but I stayed quiet. For once, I didn't need to defend myself. The truth was doing it for me. At home, Amira withdrew again, not out of rebellion, but shame. She barely ate, barely spoke. She'd sit by the window, eyes vacant. One night, I sat beside her. You're angry with yourself, I said softly, but don't be. He was good at this. He fooled me too. She turned to me, tears glistening in her eyes. I said terrible things to you, Mama. I thought you'd lied. Her voice broke. I told him I hated you. I took her hands in mine. Hate doesn't erase love, Amira. It just hides it under pain. But pain can heal. She shook her head. How can you forgive me so easily? Because I know what it feels like to be manipulated by someone you trust. You were trying to find your father in all the wrong places. That was the night she cried in my arms for hours, my little girl again, stripped of all her armor. Wrestling. In the months that followed, the air in our house began to change, slowly, softly. Amira started helping me in the garden again. She'd wake up early, make coffee for both of us, and sometimes we'd sit together in silence, not the cold silence from before, but the kind that holds peace. She began therapy, and I joined her for a few sessions. We learned to speak without accusation, to listen without defense. One afternoon she said something that stayed with me. Mama, I thought growing up meant finding my own truth, but maybe it's learning how to carry yours too. I smiled through tears. Maybe it's both. We went to visit my parents' old house, the one I'd sold to pay the debts Samir left me with. The new owners let us walk around the garden. Amira stood under the mango tree she used to climb as a child and said quietly, You rebuilt us, didn't you? Piece by piece, I said. But now, it's your turn. The closure. A few weeks later, the court sentenced Samir, 6 years in prison. It wasn't enough to erase the past, but it was enough to quiet it. When the verdict came through, Amira looked at me and whispered, Do you feel lighter? I nodded. Not lighter. Just finished. She smiled faintly. I want to tell our story one day. Maybe help other people see what manipulation looks like. I touched her cheek. Then, tell it with grace. The truth doesn't need to scream. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. The house feels different now. Not emptier, just honest. Sometimes when I pass Amira's room, I still see the letter pinned to her mirror. But she's rewritten it. The same handwriting, but new words. Thank you for looking for me. When I look back now, I realize betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it walks through the same door love once used. And forgiveness, it isn't weakness. It's a decision not to let the wound define you. There were nights I wanted to hate my daughter for what she did, for choosing the very man who broke us apart. But every time I saw her eyes, afraid, confused, and young, I remembered something my own mother used to say. Children don't betray us to hurt us. They betray us to understand who they are, and maybe that's true. Amira's betrayal forced me to face the parts of our story I'd tried to bury. The pain, the silence, the pride that kept us from hearing each other. But in losing her for that week, I found her again. Not as the little girl who needed protecting, but as a woman learning how to protect herself. If you're a parent listening to this, maybe you felt that sting, the ache of being misunderstood by the very child you'd give your life for. And if you're a daughter, maybe you've walked that line between independence and rebellion, love and doubt. Just remember this. Love that is honest doesn't always sound gentle. And truth, real truth, doesn't always come in pretty words. Sometimes it comes in the form of a letter left behind, and sometimes in the quiet return home after everything has broken. I still keep Amira's old note, not as a reminder of her mistake, but of our strength. The way we rebuilt from something that should have ruined us. Because family, it's not about perfection. It's about returning. Would you have forgiven your daughter if you found that note? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading them. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to follow and share it. You never know who might need to hear that it's not too late to come home.